All right, we're live. Hey everyone, it's Miles from Recovery, and today what we're going to do is talk about. Oh, it says live study. Oh, now I'm live. I started talking and I wasn't even live. I guess that happens. But anyway, for those of you that have made it, thanks so much for coming. My name is Miles, and I'm from Recovery, and today we're going to jump face first into toxic relationships. And this is a place where sense and sensibility makes no sense at all. Because, here's the thing, we can feel like we're addicted to toxic partners. There's so much drama and excitement in these relationships that maybe we can say that we're attracted to people who just seem like they're mysterious or exciting, and then we find that once we're in these relationships, what do? They wreak havoc all over our lives, our bodies, and our brains. And I get it. There's an allure to toxic partners, including narcissists and emotionally unavailable people. And it's more than just an emotional or psychological. It's deeply biochemical. And, our brains can be rewired to fixate on people who are not good for us. Narcissistic partners exploit this, to hook us, especially if you're somebody who's empathetic. For empaths, narcissists hook much like a drug to their drug, their addiction. And it's the biochemistry of our brains that draws us into these dark places with these dark people. Because understanding these subconscious bonds is your first step towards breaking them and breaking free. And breaking free means understanding the sticky little toxic web of narcissistic relationships and their effects on our own brain chemistry. Because imagine your brain chemistry is a lab experiment where toxic narcissistic partners are, the volatile chemicals. And it's much like if you took a spore of toxic mold and you put it on a petri dish, and then it grows and it grows, because it's not just your heart on the line, it's the very neurons in your brain that take the hit. And what you learn is that, narcissistic relationships are less about romance and more about biochemical warfare. It's like your brain, bless its little squishy little wiring and all those cute little circuits that we got in there, it gets tricked into addiction. And love bombing is like a hypnotic drug when it comes to narcissists. And their emotionally unavailable bond and band of flying monkeys are like mad scientists. And they're expertly manipulating these little chemical reactions to keep you coming back for more. And yeah, it can feel like, we can't stop ourselves sometimes, even if we know that they're bad for us. And I'm going to explain why that is, because it's all about the addiction to toxic narcissistic partners, or the addiction to bad boys or bad girls. We're going to talk about this allure to narcissists, the bad people, because it's not just the rebel without a cause, the vibe that we're attracted to. It's a full biochemical puppet show, and the narcissist is the one that's pulling all the strings. And this isn't just a love story that's gone wrong. No, it's actually a neurochemical narcissistic con job. The narcissist will rewire our brains to crave the chaos that they bring, much like an addict craves their next fix. And these toxic people with the narcissistic traits and emotional coldness are like nicotine for the soul. Yeah, they're bad for our health, but man, is it really hard to resist. And this addiction to narcissists is what we end up becoming, is addicted to the highs and the lows of this emotional roller coaster, because these highs are dizzyingly high and the lows are soul crushing. It's a thrill ride of emotions, and the price of admission is your mental well being. And what is required is a complete surrender to the narcissist. That's what their expectation is. And it's not a good deal. And breaking up with a narcissist is like detoxing from a powerful drug, because narcissists are masters of the push and the pull. And inside the relationship, that what you feel like is like a human yo-yo. Narcissists are inconsistent. They're unfair. And they have a knack for poking at your deepest insecurities and instinctively knowing how to do the most damage in the shortest amount of time. Oh, is it hard to hear me? All right. Well, let me see if I can move the mic up a little bit. I hope that's better. I did turn up the volume a little bit. Maybe I'm just mumbling. I should try to just talk louder. All right, but narcissists, what they end up doing is they create this toxic mix of, sweet talk and fast forwarding fantasies. And just so you know what future faking is, just to keep you locked in, what future faking is, this is when a narcissist convinces you to stay with them. And it could be like a statement, and they won't use these words, but they could make you feel like, yeah, sure, this moment kind of sucks right now, but stick with me and we'll be living like royalty one day. We're going to spoil you rotten. You just wait. But spoiler, it never happens. It's like being offered a sample of this addictive love potion and it's coated in chocolate, only to find that it's laced with like emotional cyanide. For those who find themselves drawn to narcissistic people, the bad treatment actually deepens the addiction, spinning our brains into a cycle that's hard to escape. It's like a fly that's kind of caught in a spider's web. And what we're going to do is we're going to unravel these little toxic ties that form a narcissist, because recognizing the signs of narcissistic traits is so important to breaking free from their gravitational pull of these narcissistic, emotional black holes. So we're going to decode this world of trauma bonds with a narcissist, because you're going to think of it as the emotional equivalent of being sucked into quicksand, because the more you struggle, the more it's going to feel like you're getting sunk in deeper, right? So let's understand this formation of these trauma bonds, because this becomes an emotional bait and switch. So imagine meeting somebody who initially showers you with attention. It's like this tropical storm that's raining love all over you. And in the middle of it, it's like, what do you feel like? You feel like you're standing in the spotlight. You feel like you're a star of your own movie. But here's the catch, and it's a big catch. Just as you're getting comfortable in that glow, the narcissist will pull back, leaving you in the emotional dark. And this narcissistic hot and cold routine isn't just confusing, it's biochemical warfare on your psyche. This combination of intense affection followed by cold withdrawal, it creates a trauma bond. Much like how a fish gets stuck on a hook. Right? First, it's the bait that lures them, and then it's the line that they're stuck to. Because this bond that a narcissist creates is tough, and it's built, through relentless cycles of affection and rejection. And understanding that this is not true love, but a biochemical glitch, helps us start to cut those emotional cords, that tie us to these toxic narcissistic people. And to break these trauma bonds, we start by understanding the biochemical bond that narcissists create. And what we're going to do is we're going to look at the science that's behind this, the science behind, pain. And I'm going to get a little bit nerdy here, but our brains are like amateur chemists. And what they do is they like to mix, dopamine with stress hormones to create this weird little cocktail that keeps us coming back for what hurts us. When the narcissist mixes affection with rejection, it's like pressing a bruise over and over again. It hurts in a way that becomes hard to ignore. And this pain is not just metaphorical, it's actually a physical pain, firing up the same areas of our brain as physical pain does. Because each cycle of this push and pull with a narcissist puts us through, it deepens these trauma bonds. And it goes deeper into our psyche and deeper into our mind, making it even more challenging to break free. And we can break this narcissistic trauma bond cycle and move from awareness into action. We can. And breaking up with a narcissistic partner can feel like, you're going through withdrawal. And this is because, in a very real way, you actually are. Just like stepping away from a drug, distancing yourself from a trauma bond can trigger withdrawal symptoms. And it's messy, it's painful, and that's why having a support system is so crucial. Friends, family, therapists, they're your emotional support crew, ready to help you navigate through the storms of this emotional crapper of breaking free from a narcissist. And as we move forward, building self-awareness about narcissism, the trauma bond, and even a cognitive dissonance is an important part of your defense system. So recognize that. So recognize the narcissistic red flags earlier is so important. And the best time to start your healing process, when is that? Yesterday. Yesterday is the best time. The second best time is today, right now. And the third best time is tomorrow. So if you haven't already started your recovery process, I would say start now if you haven't already. And once you start, it's like the best thing to do first is to establish boundaries. And this becomes like a fortress wall. And it's so important. And you have to lean on people who treat you with consistent respect. Think of it as choosing a steady diet over fast food. Yeah, it's less thrilling in the moment, but it's so much better for you in the long run. And therapy to recover from narcissistic abuse isn't just a tool, it's an ally in rebuilding your self esteem and developing healthy relational habits. By understanding both the biochemical and the emotional attachments of these trauma bonds that form in narcissistic relationships, we can equip ourselves with the knowledge to escape these toxic loops. Because we're not just surviving, we're learning how to thrive in a healthier, more fulfilling relationships outside the narcissist's influence, right? Autism in males. Yeah, we'll talk about that in a little bit. And I know Max that autism is your thing, and there is a correlation, but it's not it's not the same. Stick around as we're going to continue to navigate and heal from these complex dynamics, because freedom isn't just about breaking bonds; it's about building new, healthier connections. So, as we kind of dig in deeper, let's zoom into the brain mechanics, and it's this the brain, this mushy brainosphere that we have stuck in our cranium. This is the thing that makes breaking up with a narcissist feel like it's a surgical extraction of your heart, without anesthesia. And it can feel like you're doing your own lobotomy here, trying to pull out those pain centers in your brain. And when it comes to narcissism, it's more than just melodrama. It becomes a part of neuroscience. This is when you decide to cut ties with a narcissist. And your brain doesn't just feel sad, but it's actual pain. The same neural pathways that light up during a physical pain are activated during a breakup with a narcissist. And it's the agony that magnifies this emotional connection. Right? And the brain chemistry and the breakup pain with a narcissist can feel like a heart attack. It's like your brain becomes a puppet with your narcissistic partner holding all the strings. They've been pulling these strings through a calculated mix of mistreatment and manipulation, creating a bond that's really tough to break. And when you try to break free, it feels like an internal tug of war where every pull of the rope, scorches your hands. And this pain isn't just an emotional response. It's a physical sensation that goes through your entire being. Making the idea of recovery from a narcissistic relationship like a distant, almost unachievable dream. And what we're going to do is we're going to unpack a little bit more the role of dopamine, and that's dished out by a narcissist. And because narcissists are dealers of pleasure and pain. So if we look at the role of dopamine, this is the brain's own brand of illicit drug. It's a little chemical that kind of plays a leading role in the drama of narcissistic relationships. So you're going to think of dopamine as like an ultimate pleasure dealer in the casino of narcissistic love. And narcissistic love is very much like a casino, because every time you experience a moment of joy, whether it's an unforgettable date or a passionate night, dopamine is there, making sure that you remember it and linking that directly to the person that gave you that dopamine. Right? And narcissists, much like gamblers, know exactly how to manipulate your brain chemistry. They don't just dish out rewards like affection and attention consistently. They do it sporadically, and it's the narcissist way of keeping you on the hook. Yeah, Stockholm syndrome. That's it's exactly what it is. It's kind of like that back and forth. We actually get bonded to our abusers. right? And there's a weird attachment that kind of comes from it, and it is important that. And thanks so much for bringing that up, because that's exactly what can happen, and it happens into the victims of Stockholm syndrome as well, because it ends up being this surrender to somebody else who you hope will take care of you. And let's just keep going. But like one day, the narcissist is the person of your dreams, showering you with love and attention, and the next, they're colder than the winter in Siberia. And this intermittent reinforcement creates a powerful addiction, and it's like being a gambler at a slot machine, constantly pulling the lever because you remember that one time that you hit that jackpot, you're hooked. And the narcissist is like they're the dopamine dealer, always chasing the high of that good time, despite, increasingly you're losing all your emotional and mental well-being and your health, because it's not about emotional resilience. You need to create. It's about this biochemical response that has been hijacked by narcissist and manipulative behaviors. By recognizing these patterns, you empower yourself to start, taking back control, to recalibrate your brain's reward systems, and to ultimately break free from these toxic loops that have held you captive. And as we delve deeper into this dynamic, remember the path to recovery is not just about cutting ties with a narcissist. It's about understanding the ties that bind you in this biochemical level. And I get it, it's very complex, but we're going to explore this concept of intermittent reinforcement, which also plays a factor in Stockholm syndrome, because intermittent reinforcement it's addictive by nature, and it's a tactic that narcissists yield with the precision of a chess grandmaster. And this strategy is not just cruel, it's calculated to keep you hooked, playing on the human brain's susceptibility to addiction. And so, it's much like a drug. Think of intermittent reinforcement as a narcissistic lottery where the prize is, sporadic affection. These intense feelings can create this euphoric effect in our brains because it's that potent. The narcissist may vanish for days or try to juggle multiple relationships and sweep you off your feet, and then suddenly slam on the brakes. And this unpredictability doesn't just keep you guessing, it fires up your brain's reward centers, making the narcissist feel irresistible. Like you're trapped in this addictive cycle, always chasing the highs and they're very rare affections. It's much like a gambler who just can't leave a slot machine, and just because it paid out big once, but the rest of the time, what it's doing is it's just taking all your money away. And this is your emotions, this is your life, this is your well-being that you're putting into this slot machine that's not paying out. And here's where the plot thickens a little bit. Your brain might actually find nice people, normal people, less thrilling. You might even find them boring. Why? Because, their kindness and their behavior is consistent. Unlike, bad boys or bad girls, it's just like those are the ones that we're usually drawn to because they're exciting, they're mysterious. And they turn every encounter into this dizzying mix of highs and lows. And, nice people don't provide the same dopamine spikes. This creates a sort of, masochistic kind of craving in our brain for those who actually bring us hurt and bring us suffering. And after we break from a narcissist, if they re-enter your life, that rush when they come back, it's intense. Not because they've changed, chances are they haven't, but because your dopamine starved brain savors a familiar high, and there it is. So, how do we manage this dopamine addiction? All right. To break free from this cycle, understanding the dopamine responses are critical. And this isn't just about getting over somebody, it's about rewiring your brain's response to narcissistic tactics. Start by seeking relationships that offer stability and genuine emotional support, not just this roller coaster of highs and lows. Because recognizing the signs of intermittent reinforcement by a narcissist and refusing to play that game, that becomes so powerful. So set strong boundaries and call out, manipulative behaviors from the start. Hiya, hey Wheeler. Currently looking past Cult of Survivors. Yeah, that's really good. Hey, Naomi. Ex-narcissist was addict. I found it incredibly difficult to see the narcissism because I can only see the addiction. Yeah, and it depends on what the addiction is. Quite often, it's just like the addiction is to things that cause them to be stimulants. That could, it could show more of those dark sides and those dark traits. Alcohol is an interesting one because it's kind of like an inhibition remover, right? If you're having a few drinks and you're out having a good time, then that's what's going to come up. If you're drinking and you're angry, that's what's going to come up. So it kind of lets you see more and more what's behind the mask. Um, Sadly, narcissism is probably what made him an addict. Yeah, it could be, and a lot of narcissists actually, it's correlated. Some of those addictions, and some of it is self-medication. They try to emotionally regulate through drugs and alcohol, which is why it's interesting. Whatever drugs that they use, are they using it to escape? Are they using it to intensify? Are they using it to overstimulate? Whatever those things are. Um, Is it better to give up the 13-year custody battle against a narcissist? I don't know your situation. It might be, it might not be. There's so many more details. You can reach out to me on recovery.com and or send me a message, and I'll take a closer look. Um, all right. Oh, and yeah, you're talking about your daughter's been brainwashed. Yeah, and I get that, and I understand that. I'm actually going to have a post on parental alienation coming out soon, so watch out for that, and that'll probably answer your questions and how to manage that. It does become an internal journey, and it is how much have you already given and how much do you have left in your tank. And there's also clear communication strategies for somebody that's been brainwashed. It's like I know Stockholm syndrome came up sooner, but children of narcissistic parents can also get Stockholm syndrome to their abuser, right? I'm genuine. There is responsibility to take a stand for noting the differences. He's all above your opinion. Okay. My life was ruined after a year of marriage from a narcissist. I couldn't stand it anymore. I always thought he was going to change, and never did. That's what one thing that you're going to find, and you're also going to find that depending on how long you've been in the relationship, is also how long it goes through. Um, all right. We'll just start moving on to the next part of this, which is self care, and it's starting to come up in the conversations and in the chats. That it becomes less about them and understanding them, and more understanding of what's going on in your own mind. So self care becomes your new best friend in this recovery from narcissism, and therapy can be incredibly effective in just unpacking this biochemical bond, and it helps us rebuild our self esteem. And that's kind of the work that I do with my clients. And it's important to do things outside of the narcissist that provides healthy and steady release of dopamine, like regular exercise. Really important. Diving into hobbies that light you up. Don't underestimate the power of your support system. So it's like friends and family and support groups that can provide emotional grounding and validation needed to navigate this recovery. Um, and sharing your journey with others, like even just putting your story in the comments, is a way for you to take the experience that's outside your body and put it out into the world. Because sharing your journey with others, who have walked similar paths through narcissism, can strengthen your resolve and offer fresh perspectives. Because you're not alone in this battle. You see how many people are on this video and commenting right now. It's just like there's a lot of us out there, and with the right tools and right support, we can detox from narcissistic relationships and cultivate connections that are not only healthy but also fulfilling. And navigating the chronic emotional pendulum of these relationships with a narcissist can often feel like being strapped to a swing that's attached to an airplane during an air show. Because it's like one moment they're sweeping you off your feet, showering you with affection, and then next, what have they done? They've ghosted you for somebody else. And this extreme unpredictability isn't just emotionally draining, it's neurologically addictive. And this very unpredictability, that's what makes narcissists so distressing, is that what lights up your brain's reward circuits each time that you pull away, it leaves you craving those good times and magnifying even the smallest little gestures of affection. Because the scarcer the attention the narcissist gives you, the more valuable it seems, making even the smallest little crumb of kindness feel like it's a feast. And this relentless cycle of emotional highs and lows, it's intoxicating. As your brain continues to equate these intense turmoils with excitement and pleasure at all costs. So, how do we resist this dopamine and oxytocin bonds and break the biochemical change from narcissistic relationships? To break free from a narcissistic partner is so important to, resist that little siren song. That's the song of dopamine. And it's a chemical that turns pain into pleasure and keeps you going back for more. And, it's a positive, it's these little positive experiences you shared with narcissists, each laugh, each tender moment, it reinforces this bond, making it tougher to leave. And compounding this challenge is oxytocin. This is also called the love hormone. And this hormone is potent enough to bond a mother and a child. And it also bonds you to a toxic narcissistic partner who doesn't deserve your trust or your affection. Your physical intimacy with a narcissist isn't just a moment of closeness. It becomes this biochemical glue that fuses you to them, deepening the trust and attachments, even in the face of betrayal. Um, what is the benefit of what is beneficial? What was beneficial in my recovery and healing was reading and watching poetry. But that's brilliant. Poetry is brilliant, and reading itself, just reading a book, and it doesn't have to be about narcissism. In fact, reading books, just fiction and fantasy, and any of those other things. Our lizard brain, the brain in the back of our head, doesn't know how to read or write. So if you actually pick up a book and read, I know it's kind of old school. Maybe your tablet and read. That it forces you to use your neocortex, and that's really beneficial. And what else? Angela says, yeah, tapping into the inner garden, the brain's sphere dynamic. That's really important. It allows dopamine receptors to reformat in the way that's detached from the experience and minimize the damage. So that's great. That's brilliant. And it does rechange your whole neural pathways, because it's just like if we're getting all our experiences from one person, then we tend to be addicted to that one person. And narcissists are great at alienating us from everyone else, making us dependent on one person. And expanding your network and having more and more people is so important. Yeah, it does feel like medical detective on how to reprogram after Stockholm syndrome and identify neurodiverse. And our brains are neuroplastic. We do have those. Um, and it takes time to rewire, but it's absolutely worth it, because once you start doing that work, it ends up becoming part of your life. The stuff that you enjoy, you actually start to enjoy more. The things that you gave up in order to caretake a narcissist all of a sudden give you reason and passion and all of those things. Max, just a thought. My mother and sister would be gaining ground. They would smear campaign, yeah, and turn around cold again. That's like one of those things. It's like, be in this relationship with me, or I will hurt you. I will smear your name. I'll do everything. But if you give in to my whims, then I will treat you nice. It's like, wow. And when you're bonded to them, or even in Stockholm syndrome, it's just like when you're bonded to them, it's just like, oh, all right, well, that becomes life or death. I don't want to ruin my reputation. Just tell me what to do, what to do, what to do. But you can tell that's part of the grooming process in narcissists, and how they erode our self-esteem over time, which are all these toxic traits. Yeah, learning the chemical cause of trauma bond is a great way to begin to understand addiction. Yeah, because it does feel like addiction. Seeking my relationship with God. Yeah, absolutely. God is higher energy, a power that's above everything. And whether it's God or the universe or some form of higher power, it's just like it's important to connect. And the Bible has brilliant verses, and it's got a lot of things. And if you have a connection to a church, A lot of churches have ministers or priests who are skilled counselors. And prayer is also a form of meditation. And meditation rewires your brain, and so does prayer. So yeah, those are brilliant. Thanks for sharing that. Because what ends up happening is, this is why walking away from narcissistic relations can feel like you're tearing a part of yourself away, because that's exactly what happens. Because it's not just an emotional decision; it becomes a psychological or physiological one. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you six steps towards breaking free from these narcissistic bonds that they create. And number one is recognize the triggers. Understanding what actions and patterns triggers your dopamine and oxytocin responses, because noticing what those things feel like. What does your dopamine receptors feel like? What does your oxytocin responses feel like? Being aware of those is the first step towards changing it. So when they pull your buttons, when they pull your triggers, you're, oh, I know exactly what you're doing. Number two is create emotional distance, because limit or eliminate interactions that lead to dopamine spikes or oxytocin floods. This might mean cutting off contact, setting strict boundaries if no contact is not possible. Three, seeking support. Rely on friends, rely on family or a therapist who can provide a perspective and reinforce what that when you're tempted to go back, that you are repeating these old emotional patterns. And and if you are looking for a therapist, look for one that's skilled with interpersonal trauma, because these types of relationships do a unique kind of damage to our brain and a unique kind of wiring to our brain, and it does require trauma understanding in order to unpack it all. Engage in new activities, replace old habits with new ones. Also, releases the dopamine, but it does it in a healthy way. And exercise is a great way, and hobbies are a great way, and other things that you actually enjoy. And number five, practice mindfulness and self-care. Techniques like meditation, yoga, prayer. Prayer is absolutely a great one for creating mindfulness and self-care. And what it can do is it can help manage the stress over time, because prevent these emotional blackouts, and it can foster a sense of calm and control. And number six is just educate yourself. Understanding the science behind your feelings can demystify a lot of the emotions that are bringing meaning to your experience, and it can help you just mitigate the impulses of your experiences, and manage these emotional swings that help you recover faster, because it's just like you got the dopamine hit or you got the cortisol hit. It's just like, oh, all right. When we're triggered, it can take 2 hours. It can take 2 hours for adrenaline to leave our system. And so it's just like, all right, for these 2 hours, I'm shaking, I'm having a panic attack. I'm not going to make any decisions. And that's one of those things. Angelina, you said it. I was going to write it. Yes, it's called the reptilian brain. Yeah, that's right. Fact checked my hypothesis. Sorry, it's scrolling up. Food for your soul. Yeah, poetry is and solitude. And I also love nature and sounds and pets. Pets are amazing at regulating us, and hugs. Hugs will release oxytocin. I think it's like an 8-second hug. Find somebody and hug them for 8 seconds, or just give yourself a hug, because you are worth it, and that can also trigger all of those things. Oh, you're welcome for the live. Yeah, I'm sorry, Anthony, you gotta go, but thanks for coming in when you did. Um, Karina, even now, 9 weeks after leaving, after a horrific weekend, no contact, hard not to love them and feel sad. No, I get it. It's a pure addiction, right? And the other thing is, and I'll get into it later, but this adrenaline actually does work as an antidepressant, right? So even after these splits, because we're so exposed to these highs and lows, we actually get depressed. We actually just get distracted from our own internal stuff. And then when the quiet comes, then it's all the things we weren't able to say and process that kind of comes at us. And it's easy. You want to quiet down, you take them back. It'll quiet down your brain, because all of a sudden you're back in the chaos and you're not processing your own hurt. But that ends up making things worse, right? Yeah, animals are so therapeutic. So is nature and somatics. I left the state and found new horizons. Brilliant, yeah. And then you've got your whole you've got your whole community that you got, and that's growing. And that's great to see, Max. Um, all right. So, yeah, so we are just trying to understand these biochemical changes that bind you to a narcissist to equip yourself with tools to break them. Because it's all about reshaping your brain's reward system. And, that's what Karina was starting to talk about, because it is like those old systems. The pleasure, the pain, the pleasure, the pain. It's like it's redefining what joy means to you and rebuilding a life where your emotional well-being is no longer tethered to some narcissist, crazy whims, nuts. It's not about breaking free from a narcissistic partner, but it's about returning to yourself and healing and finding, true, healthy connections that enrich rather than deplete you. We're going to keep going deeper. There's actually a lot here, and I know this is going to be one of my longer talks. But I do want to go a little bit deeper to understand the entanglement that narcissists create in our lives, because it's important to understand that the hormones that are here at play, and it's a significant role in bonding with a narcissist. And these chemical reactions, they not only fuel the flames of our attraction, but they also reinforce the chains of dependency and manipulation with a narcissist. Hormones such as estrogen and testosterone, they have profound effects on how we bond to a narcissist. Estrogen actually enhances the effects of oxytocin, and that's a bonding hormone that makes us feel even closer and more connected to these narcissistic partners, even if they are toxic. And testosterone can dampen the effects. But the whole thing is, it's just like two people will respond differently to the exact same relationship dynamic because of the way their minds are wired, and it depends on what hormones that they have in their body. And once you're sexually bonded with a narcissist, this bond extends deeply into a psychological and emotional part of your brain, and this mix of stress hormones like cortisol and adrenaline, which spike during these stressful interactions, they actually enhance our bond, making the relationship harder to break, and even if it's very destructive in nature, right? Fiona, yeah. Once I learned that I was never seen as a person, but rather a source of creative supply. Yeah, and they do feed on us, right? And I love that the term energy vampires, because it's just like you go into these environments, and even though they're addictive and they're highs and lows and highs and lows and highs and lows, they're intense. And when they're over, it's like, oh, we're so exhausted. It's just like, why did I have to keep my brain on running that hard for that long? And it's absolutely exhausted. Oh, you put in a pool this year. Good. That's actually water is another, and we got animals. So we talked about animals. Water is amazing. Also, hot and cold. Any kind of sweat therapy. Hot yoga is amazing for that. Saunas are really good with that. Hot tubs, baths, steam rooms. Those it'll actually much of the adrenaline and the cortisol will leave through your sweat. And so also drinking water is very important. Um, all right. Well, thanks for dropping by, Naomi. You can watch the replay. It'll be up tomorrow. All right. So through these stressful responses, we can create also this state of learned helplessness. And I know we talked about Stockholm syndrome earlier on, but it's like through our stress responses, we can create this state of learned helplessness in toxic relationships, because narcissists are masters at triggering intense stress responses. So what does that actually do? It spikes the cortisol and adrenaline levels in our brain. But we're bonded to these people. So instead of triggering a fight or flight response, the chemical surges become so intense, it actually can put you into a freeze response. And this is what I mean when I call the state of learned helplessness, right? And it's the biochemical state of alarm that causes our brains to hyper focus on the narcissistic partner. So we become, acutely aware of and sensitive to any stress that the narcissist can cause. Yet we feel powerless to stop it. And yet this stress, the response, also drives us to seek comfort from the very sources of the people that causes stress. And narcissists are masters at creating codependency state. They're like mad scientists that are stirring up a combination of hormones that makes us reactionary, triggering all the fear-based memories that we have. Meaning every single memory involving fear and anxiety and abandonment, with the narcissistic partner becomes more vivid and more emotionally charged. And then, bam, we're bonded to the narcissist biochemically, right? Um, hello, hello, late to life. Well, welcome, Paula. It's okay. It's okay. Just glad to have you here. Yeah, it's so hard. We are childhood friends, and I cry every day. Yeah, so it just tells me that there is a grooming process, and because you have that connection for so long, it ends up going deeper and deeper into our subconscious mind. So it's just like, yeah, remember other things that you enjoyed, especially since you were together for so long. What else did you enjoy? Did you enjoy fishing? Did you enjoy cycling? Did you enjoy hiking? Camping, any of those things. Those things can kind of, doing some of those things can help just move you away from the memories of, your childhood memories with them, with other memories, and then just bringing new ones. Anxiety and depression were always at the highest when I was around him. It is because you have to be alert, right? If you're going to be in an environment where you don't know what the next word is, what the next statement is, the wrong look could trigger them. So our brains would naturally give us more adrenaline and cortisol. Why? So we can be more alert. And when we're more alert, what does that lead to? Anxiety and depression. In depression, a lot of that is anger, displaced anger. You can't have the anger go outwards because it's too intense. So what do? Is you internalize it. And my favorite definition of depression is actually anger turned inwards. So it's finding healthy ways to release that anger. Um, yeah, you're free. You're right, Fiona. Gotta go stay in my pool, scheduling when I can. Good. All right. Catch you on the flip. Good night. Good night, Max. Why narcissists don't pay child support? Why don't narcissists pay child support? I don't know. And it all depends on that situation. Some of them just don't feel like that they're responsible, right? Or their money is more important or more spent to them. There's so many different reasons. Watching the reels threat and rewiring my brain journey. That's good. And the reels are there to help because they're like quick little hits, and always try to work in something kind of positive and just kind of framing and knowledge, because there's two parts of the recovery process. One is cognitive, and a lot of the cognitive work I've got on my site. You can go through my feed, and it's all there. And the next part of recovery is the emotional integration. That's where you're working with somebody, and you work through all of the trauma. You know, is it normal to feel life everything that doesn't feel right? So you're dying with, yeah, actually it does, and I know exactly what you're talking about. That because you've all the sources of supply, right? If you're going to think about a baby in the mother's milk, right? If the baby needs that milk more than anything else to stay alive, and when you used to have a big network, you used to have lots of fun, you used to have all of these other things, and imagine slowly and periodically that kind of takes it away, and it actually becomes a physical pain. The withdrawal is like so intense, and you do get kind of used to having them around, and once they get bored of you, it's just like, yeah, no, that's done. They will move on to somebody else, but it does feel really hurt. And I'm glad you found this helpful. I'm glad you found this helpful. But it is normal what you're going through. It is normal what you're going through. And I know exactly what you're talking about. And I know exactly how that feels. Just going to take a sip of water. All right. Now we're just going to go back to talking about kind of the wiring that happens in our brains. Because it's there to keep us bonded to these narcissists. And there are strategies that we use to breaking free and rewiring our responses. And a lot of them we've kind of started talking about in this in the chat. But to break free from this addictive cycle of this addiction to a narcissistic partner, it's so important to recognize and strategically counteract the hormonal and psychological bonds that they've created. And I'm going to give you 6 ways to rewire our brains away from these chemicals. The number one is understanding the chemical bond. So recognize how oxytocin and cortisol make you feel. Like, actually understand when you're getting a hit of oxytocin or you're getting cortisol. Notice how it makes you feel. Because seeing it, noticing it, and that this is biology, This is taking place, and it's influencing your feelings and your perceptions and your reactions. This becomes so important, right? And awareness alone, can help diminish the control over it. You say, oh, I'm highly triggered right now. I can tell. I can't keep my hands straight, right? Automatically, all right, I got to breathe. I got to get out. Don't make any decisions, you know? It's just like if you're triggered, you've got all these hormones inside you, right? If you're drinking, you don't get behind the wheel of a car. You're not going to make the best decisions. But yeah, we can be triggered with hormones, different hormones, but we don't make the best decisions. So notice when we're getting overloaded with hormones, and then do what you need to do because everyone's going to be a little bit different. Two, develop emotional resilience. So this is find ways to prevent the creation of new pleasurable memories with the toxic narcissist. And this may involve strict boundaries, physically distancing yourself from that person, because the love bombing, it's hard to resist, and they just suck us back in. And please, if you've broken up with a narcissist, it's just like sex has to be off the table, because it's like that sexual bond, that sexual tension, it'll just re-trigger all of those things, and everything gets way too intense. And it's just like, yeah, I know it'll feel good, but long-term consequences are really really hard. So emotional resilience, avoid those big dopamine hits that narcissists throw at you, because remember, they come with strings, right? And it's a lie, because there's two sides to them. There's the one they show to the world, and then the one that after they unmask that comes. So if you take the one, you know the other is coming. And number three, create healthy relationships with healthy people. So spend time that offer with people that offer healthy interactions, right? If you're used to unhealthy ones, go into places where you know that there are healthy ones. Community centers, churches, community forums, all of those things where there are healthy people doing healthy things. Getting involved in team sports is really good, because these relationships can help you stabilize your emotional state and promote healthier oxytocin response without the roller coaster of stress hormones, because there are no spikes of adrenaline and oxytocin when you're in these healthier relationship dynamics. And I know they may feel boring at first. I know they'll feel boring at first. You can go scream at a narcissist for 6 hours, or you can go, coach a little league basketball game. And it's just like, they both bring you oxytocin, but boring is good at first. So if you find things that are boring, it's okay, because what you have to do is relearn human connections and what a healthy connection is, and that is not a healthy connection. Number four, it's focus on self-care. So spend more time doing things that reduce stress. Yoga is really good. Meditation is really good. Prayer is an excellent form of connecting to a higher power. And any form of physical exercise will help get rid of all those, lower your cortisol levels, lower your adrenaline levels, and help you combat, feelings of helplessness. Five is therapeutic interventions. Hire somebody who specializes in traumatic relationships, because that's really important, because therapy alone, it can offer, valuable insights into the whole biochemical and psychological dynamics that you experience, and provide, coping mechanisms to help you break free from the toxic grip. Plus, therapists can work through your things at your own pace, meaning that the growth that you experience when you go into the therapeutic process, it becomes long lasting. And six, build a support network. Lean on friends, family, support groups who understand your situation and can offer emotional support and practical advice. Join groups of other people who are going through what you're going through, like this community right here. Even join a mediated support groups, which I also do, that can help create connections with other people that understand. The whole thing is, if you join like the group like Recovery House, it's just like you don't have to explain or educate what narcissism is or narcissistic abuse is, because you can't explain that to grandma or dad. It's just like they're like, what? It's too complicated. But here's somebody, you don't have to sit there and explain what a personality disorder is. And in that environment, you're going to help. So that's six ways there. But the reality is, and I hate to say this, but there is no silver bullet here. It's slow work over time that leads to lasting empowerment, and that's what you're going to ensure that you're going to move away from these toxic entanglements towards healthier, fulfilling relationships. Because breaking free, it's not just about ending the relationship; it's about healing from the inside out and rebalancing our hormones and rewiring our emotional responses and reclaim our lives. A happier, more fulfilled life, that isn't draining you of, life, liberty, and your pursuit of happiness. Um, yeah, it's definitely all fake. Yep, I get that. Yeah, it's a lot of fun. Oh, hey, Kathy. Yeah, there's a lot of fun to be had in stability, right? It's not like going to one of those Marilyn Manson concerts, right? Because it's just like there's something cool about the insanity of it all too. But there is a lot of fun in the instability and just calm walks and listening to the breeze, and not with all that intensity. Excellent point regarding sex. It's intensely hard to say no. It is. It is. And that the physical bond, like the hormones that are secreted from the skin and stuff during sexual encounters, it is hard to be physically intimate with somebody who that has the potential of hurting you. So be very, very careful with that. It's definitely all fake. I was betrayed. Yeah. So many of us were. Finding people in communities where, oh, sorry, comments just keep scrolling up. In communities where they have healed narcissistic abuse are the healthiest people because churches and sports are often narcissistic hubs. They can be, yeah, absolutely, they can be, yeah, but not always, but often. But the whole thing is like if one church community triggers you, there's another one. There's another one. The giving up all sports because there's a couple of narcissistic people that join them into hubs. Yeah, that's not true. So if basketball is not your thing, try volleyball. If volleyball's not your thing, try something else. But keep moving, keep trying keep trying different things. Oh gosh, everything feels so boring and pointless. It does. But it's a healthy pointless. It's like Kathy was saying earlier. It's just like it's actually nice. And I can't remember whether it was Winston Churchill or somebody, one of the people, but the quote was, the whole cause of all strife and wars and all the problems of the world is because of man's inability to sit in a room by himself with his own thoughts. Right? And we're looking for drama. We're looking for drama. You turn on the news, there's drama. You flip through your thing, there's drama. There's drama everywhere. So yeah, those drama cycles. How can I ever trust again? Well, first you have to forgive yourself. It's like, and then trust yourself because you actually did. I'm talking to Lisa here, but like you actually did have the instincts, but you kind of suppressed them, right? And when things started to go bad, just kind of hoping that if we squeeze harder, that it would get better, and it just got worse, right? But you did trust yourself. There's a part of you that was saying, "Why are you holding on so hard?" Right? And once you trust yourself, and it doesn't really matter going out into having these experiences in life. It's not about being all closed off. It's about being able to experience things, but also being able to pull back. Um, yeah, same. Almost 5 years. I saw it all. 74 days. No contact now. It's easily resisted as hoovering it. That's good. 74 days is really good. They say with most addictions, the first 28 is the hardest. Then there's going to be like a rebound time that probably comes around the 2 month mark, and all the echoes start to get calmer and calmer as time goes by. I really wanted to believe it. It was all fake. Yeah, me too. Me too. And everyone here too. They want to believe. They want to believe that these people who can just kind of flip personalities and do all of these things right in front of our eyes, just like that. We want to believe that, and they totally get it. The last time that showed up unannounced, hadn't seen him in 2 weeks because I left and tried to hug and kiss me. That is so weird. That is so weird that time can kind of pass, and then they just kind of show up, and they're like, nothing bad has ever happened. Blah 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 blah. It's like I have not forgotten. I have not forgotten the hurt that you caused. I've not forgotten, and you can pretend that we're best friends again, but not falling into that trap again. So yeah, I wanted to believe it too. Um, yeah, and the sex, it was the only time that I used to feel love is yours was real. Yeah, because it is very intimate, right? It is very passionate, and the hormones coming out of both your bodies, it becomes this, communal experience. But when they're toxic, it's just like, yeah, it's too intense. It's too intense, and that's what makes things addictive. So yeah, just be very careful with intimacy with a narcissist after breakup, because it'll delay your recovery process, and that's more important. And getting healthier relationships and establishing healthy bonds with people is becomes so important. But to understand all of these things, we're just going to look at how our brains and our bodies handle this interplay between fear, anxiety, and addiction to these people with narcissistic personalities. Because understanding these dynamics, it's so important. Because when you're walking on eggshells, and this kind of came up in the conversation, but when we're walking on eggshells and you're worrying that, one wrong move or one long look or one question will trigger them, what ends up happening is our body is flooded with adrenaline. Why? Because we need to be on the ball. We need to watch every one of our little movements. And what does this do? It creates a high state of arousal, which can also act as an antidepressant. Being on these high states of arousal act as an antidepressant. And this surge leaves some of the immediate stress, but it also becomes something that unconsciously we start to crave these adrenaline rushes, because we know that behind it is that antidepressant effect, that if we don't have those constant adrenaline rushes, then all of a sudden we feel like we're going to crash, right? And we end up craving these hyper states. And I know it's a chemical addiction, and it's a chemical addiction to very abusive behavior. And what else happens is that fear triggers the release of dopamine, and that reinforces the brain's reward circuits, deepening the addiction to these highs, right? So it is like, when you put squeeze a lime on a hot wing. It opens up your pores, your tongue, so the heat goes deeper into your tongue, right? That's exactly what happens when the fear triggers and the dopamine kind of connect together, because it just deepens this addiction to these highs. And this is how the narcissists suck us into this cycle where fear and pleasure are just kind of intertwined. And pleasure and pain in our brains are actually really closely wired, making it difficult to break free from just irrational behaviors from a narcissist and detach ourselves from toxic relationships. These intense narcissistic experiences are like riding a roller coaster where it's like we're facing life-threatening situations. But they can also, further with the narcissist, and turn these deepen that bonds and deepen these connections, and often feel like we're continuously inflicting these emotional pain on us. It's just like we just keep going back because our brain tries to soothe us with survival responses, or at least the brain is tricked into doing so by the very same toxic people that manipulated our minds, right? And I don't know if anyone's ever experienced the complete mental shutdown, where it's just like the rage gets so intense in your face that your brain literally shuts off. You're just seeing noise, and you're just kind of in a state of complete freeze. You're in complete detachment, dissociated from your own thoughts. That's also like a survival hormone that's released in our brain, and it's equivalent to if you ever see like a mouse that gets caught by a cat. It's just like the mouse will just go limp, and it's these painkillers that get shot into the body, and it's kind of like that can actually be triggered in these very toxic environments. I feel like I was addicted to hypervigilance itself. Yeah, hypervigilance is intense. It is intense. It's like making sure our doors are locked and making sure this is locked, and all of these things. What it actually comes down to is safety, right? The hypervigilance is the opposite of that is safety. We just don't feel safe. We don't feel safe in our own minds. We don't feel safe in our own bodies. We don't feel safe in all of those other things. And then when you start working on the recovery process, you realize I am safe. I've always been safe. And it's just like, you got your breathing, you got your tapping, you got books, you got music, you've got art, taking up stained glass. like window thingies, like those things are really passionate ways of just kind of reinforcing all of those healthy hormones. You know, I'm still sleeping for nights and full days consecutively. Yeah, that can happen. What it might be is it could be a depressive cycle because the intensities can keep us awake, and then when they go, and it's like a lot of this adrenaline and cortisol has antidepressant effects, and they will mask the symptoms of depression. And when you extricate yourself from these relationships, then yeah, it could have hit us pretty hard. But we were using the insanity of that relationship to regulate our own hormones, and in the long term that doesn't really help. Your nervous system completely exhausted from long-term stress, and it takes time for it to start to feeling rested again. Yeah, and keep in mind we also have neural pathways in our brains, and they're so used to following the same patterns, and finding that deep calm inside of your own brain is really important in changing those neural pathways. That's why prayer is so good, meditation is so good, walking is so good, art is really good, reading because it uses our neocortex is really good. And it is this serotonin and this obsessive love thing that kind of creates this biochemical roller coaster of emotions. Because falling in love with a narcissist, it has its effect on our brain chemistry. So just hear me out on this, because when we fall in love with a narcissist, what happens is there's a drop in our serotonin levels. And it's something that also happens with obsessive compulsive disorder or OCD. So when serotonin levels in our brain decrease, it disrupts our ability for mood regulations and decision making, and leading us to obsessive thoughts, primarily centered around the narcissist. It's like we can't get them out of our minds. It's like they're taking up free real estate in our minds, and it's just like they're still there in this state. It can encourage all sorts of desire and all sorts of fantasy, and it also bonds us with oxytocin and dopamine, which strengthen those bonds even further. So it makes every single interaction with a narcissist overly intense. And even the thought of a fight with a narcissist or a conversation with a narcissist, it can just repeat and trigger us and put us into these flashback loops that get the adrenaline back into our bodies. Just the thoughts. It's like it could be years since you spoke to them, and yet the thought of that will just re-trigger those old patterns. And then all of a sudden you're getting all these drugs in your body that your brain is releasing from a memory, from a thought. Um, and yeah, nervous system completely exhausted. And yep. So yeah, and resting and recharging is just letting all those things go. But just all the if you just think about even just the pleasurable moments with a narcissist, right? The negative ones can release the adrenaline and the cortisol, and then all of a sudden we're attacking whatever's in front of us. But also the pleasurable moments with a narcissist, they can trigger a dopamine release, right? You can think about your last passionate kiss or the beautiful date, and it intensifies the reward circuitry in our brain. And just the thought of these intense experiences, they can give us this dopamine high. And because there's this biochemical drugstore that's behind why the victims of narcissistic abuse find themselves hanging on to every message, eagerly anticipating calls, like, why haven't they called me? They're like 4 minutes late. I really want to fight, right? Or endlessly fantasizing about the next encounter. Oh, next time I'm going to see them, I'm going to give them a piece of my mind, blah, 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 blah. And we're thinking about that again and again, despite the fact that this person is sick in the head and they're not good for us, like not even a little bit. We can see how intensely these bonds can be created. And a narcissist, they exploit these biochemical mechanisms through just unpredictable behaviors and intermittent for affection. So, love bombing, which creates almost an irrational compulsion to return to them. And it's an irrational compulsion despite the emotional turmoil that they cause. I know it's weird. I know it's weird, but that's exactly what happens from a chemical point of view of our brain. It's like they're crack cocaine. They're so bad for us. Most of the time, they're horrible for us. But there are those little highs now and again that made us feel so good. Um, Oh my gosh, the thought of having a discussion isn't enough exhausting you. Yeah, that's true. Yeah, when I think back to the older relationships and stuff, it's exhausting now. It's just like, and most of those fights and the intensity is like they're not even that important. They make it seem like something that could have been a level three discussion is all of a sudden World War IV, right? It's just like it's not. It's not. They're these little things, but everything is turned up to 11, right? Just quote Spinal Tap. Some of you'll know who that is. Some of you think I don't know what I'm talking about, but yeah, they turn everything to 11. So and what we know is there's a chemical addiction that happens when we're with a narcissist, and this is what I'm going to talk about a little bit now, because there are ways that we can break from these chemical bonds to our abuser, and I'm going to take you through five of them. One is awareness and education, because it's not you, it's your brain chemistry. So learn as much as you can about the biochemical and psychological bonds that are at play, and you're less likely to go into that cycle again. You can even feel yourself moving towards that, and you go, okay, well, that's not the rational me, that's my chemicals that are kind of pushing me in that direction. And then, you may still find yourself in that cycle again and again, but at the very least, you're going to exit much, much sooner. And that's going to cause less damage in the future. So, learning what your reactions are to them, that can provide you with just an objective perspective on what your feelings and your behaviors are when these chemicals are in your body, and being able to label them and understand them, so important. And it will help break that primal hold that a narcissistic partner has over you. Number two, professional help. Engaging with a therapist who specializes in addiction, trauma, relationships can be very invaluable. And there's so many different modalities that can help you. And I use many of them with my clients. There's a couple of my clients that have shown up on this thing. IFS, which is parts work, where you can kind of talk to your younger parts. It helps you become more of an inner guide, and it helps you kind of see through the impulses and help you control that they're coming from old chemical wiring that you can do. Cognitive behavioral therapy can address any kind of obsessive compulsive tendencies related to relationships, thoughts, behaviors. Somatic work gets you out of your mind, gets you into your body. And hypnotherapy, which is something that I also use with my clients, it can help just create this deep state of relaxation and calm. And that's where you can kind of go, and that's where we can do the trauma work and recovery, and do some of and release a lot of these old wirings. So our brain doesn't actually even go there. And number three is managing our biochemistry better. Activities that naturally balance serotonin and reduce adrenaline. Regular exercise, sunlight exposure, very important. If you look into your diet, creating a balanced diet that's rich in omega-3 fatty acids is really helpful. Lean proteins, very important. They can all improve your mood and help promote regulation and resistance. Also, drink water. Drink lots of water, because it'll flush out a lot of that adrenaline and cortisol as you can. And plus, being hydrated prevents our brains from being easily triggered, because when we're thirsty and we don't even realize it, our body's more sensitive to leading us to survival strategies. And also sweat, hot tubs, cold plunges are also good, going from hot to cold, hot to cold. They'll also get us out of our brain and release a lot of the hormones that aren't helpful. Strengthening emotional connections is number four. Develop and nurture relationships with friends, family, communities that are supportive and stabilizing. We are social creatures. We are pack animals at our core. We're pack animals. And if we're connected to a very toxic person, and that's our only pack member, it's like, all right, well, then we can't emotionally regulate. Creating a bigger community. It's like, yeah, you got a lot of stress and anxiety, but a group will help stabilize you. So it's just like engaging in hobbies and interests and fulfill you outside of any romantic relationship. And like Recovery has a group program where people just like you meet regularly, and they connect and heal and learn from each other. Number five, mindfulness and meditation. These practices can help manage stress, reduce the impact of adrenaline and cortisol, and improve overall emotional balance, and helping us break through the cycle of dependency on toxic relationship dynamics. And meditation is actually proven that it can rewire our brain, right? Because it forces us to go into these very calm states. And prayer is also another form of just kind of rewiring our brains. Um, and by taking these steps, we can kind of begin to unravel the complex web of biochemical and emotional ties that binds us to a narcissist and get your life back on track. You know, these tips can pave the way forward towards recovery and healthier relationships because our brains are remarkable. They're remarkable for the way their ability to adapt and change, right? Because our brains actually hold the key to the healing from the damages caused from narcissistic relationships, and we can heal. You know, it takes time. But I didn't meet a single client. I haven't worked with a single client that couldn't learn to heal themselves. And you know, through the process of neuroplasticity, we can rewire our brains in favor of more positive, healthy connections over those that harm us. And that's why you know regular exercise, social bonds, all of these things, you know, from people, you know, pursuing your hobbies, listening to music, following our passions, you know, they can create all of these neural pathways and support recovery. Why is narc abuse related to my struggle with crack and meth use? Well, crack and meth are stimulants, right? And when you overstimulate your brain, you actually create clarity. There could be a OCD thing there. There could be so many different things. But it could be your brain, your subconscious, also trying to regulate itself. What kind of meditations do you recommend? Yeah, well, I'd use hypnotherapy meditations. There's a couple really good guided meditators on YouTube that I really like. But yeah, those are all good. And sometimes you know just breathing, bowls. I have a bowl. Bowls are interesting, right? Because I don't know how well this will work, but if you just gotta close your eyes, the sound has vibrations, right? And vibrations kind of link us. So you can listen to different bowls sounds. Oh yeah, you love singing bowls. Yeah, so, sound therapy is great, and even you know music and concerts, going to events where the energy where you can connect to big groups and big events is also really helpful. But overcoming the addiction to narcissists, you know, replacing unhealthy fixations with actions and relationships that are more meaningful, more nurturing. Because finding things in our lives that are rich in our lives, it becomes so important. And for some of us, you know, you may have to go cold turkey. Or gradually reduce exposure to your narcissist. And when you understand the biochemistry that's at play in these toxic narcissistic relationships, you can see it is like weaning off a potential drug, a potent drug potential. So, managing fear and anxiety is also important in breaking the hold of any kind of fear based attachments to narcissistic people because recognizing the role of adrenaline and dopamine in creating these bonds allows us to develop strategies that ease the impact on our lives. And mindfulness practices can regulate mood swings and reduce our brain's propensity to obsessive thinking. You know, setting clear boundaries and incrementally decreasing contact with a narcissist in all forms. You know, because there's going to be narcissists everywhere, but noticing how they're interacting, realize that they don't actually have any power because it's your attention that they want, and you cut off your attention, you cut off their supply. They really have no control over you after that. But it is important to get support from you know friends, family members, you know group support is really important. You know reinforcing healthy relational patterns, investing time and energy into healthy relationships that provide consistent emotional support. These are all really good. And throughout this whole talk, you know, we've explored, you know, toxic trauma bonds with narcissists, the emotional unavailable partners. And we've also uncovered several critical insults, insights, several critical insights. And I'm going to take you through six of them. One is it's a biochemical addiction, right? Our brains can become wired to obsess over partners who just cause suffering and hurt and just to our overall well-being. So remember the narcissists trigger dopamine and oxytocin in our brains, and that's what bonds that can create these deeper into our reward centers of our mind, right? And number two, it's like addiction to this emotional roller coaster. It's the highs and the lows, intermittent reinforcement. I know we want to go into these relationships and it's just highs. No, they come at a price. right? So it's finding relationships and intimate dynamics that don't have these highs, because the highs and the lows are just going to be what the addiction, what our addiction is to. Number three, extreme stress to the point of learned helplessness. The role of stress hormones like cortisol and adrenaline do contribute to the freeze response, and this is the state of learned helplessness. It's where the intensity is so intense that you literally just become a vegetable, right? And this freeze response is a learned state of helplessness, and it can be challenging to escape a narcissist, because when that intensity brings you calm, it's weird how our brains go into those situations. Number four is understanding the hormonal brain chemistry. We know that hormones impact our attachment and how we make it more difficult to break away because of these powerful biochemical forces that are looping us in. And then number five is, strategies for breaking free. It's like important to recognize destructive patterns, getting professional help, because, our brains can rewire themselves because of the neuroplasticity. And we have to forge healthier mental pathways, and that takes time, it takes patience, and it's understanding that our thoughts are not our own for a little while, and giving ourselves space until we can actually start to observe our thoughts, and when our thoughts are separate from us. And all right, well, I'm going to move those over here, I'm going to move those over here, but I'm going to walk my path on my terms. Right? Find support and self-care, building supportive networks, establishing clear boundaries, and engaging in self-care are mandatory for recovery and long-term health. So remember that you're not alone. There's countless people. Like, look at all the people that are just here on this feed right now. It's just like there's so many of us. We're not alone in this. And there are countless narcissism survivors that have navigated through this challenging path before and have emerged stronger, and because of it. And they end up finding, becoming more fulfilled afterwards than before, because the blinders are now off, right? When you see the energy of these toxic people and the dynamics that kind of get us sucked in, and then have the strength to say no, to pull back. Wow. Yeah, if that's what you can do, what else can you do? Where can you take that? What is it that you want? But it just takes time. It takes patience, and it takes the right support. And you can move beyond these biochemical attachments. We have the narcissistic people, and you can move past the old relationships and embrace a future that's just full of rich love and richness and love and respect, because you are worthy, you are enough, and you deserve all the good things that life has to offer. Time to go start my day. Really enjoyed chatting with you. Yeah, me too, Fiona. Thank you so much. I love singing bowls. Yeah, that's cool. I love them. I love them too. But that's pretty much all that I have to talk about today. I do hope you guys got a lot out of it. Thank you so much for joining me. My name is Miles. I'm from Narcovery, and thank you for being part of this community, because it's so important that you're here. And I would like to help. If you're in a hurry to recover, if you want to go through this recovery process quicker, in months instead of years, you can send me an email to recovery@narcovery.com, and I can get you into my calendar, and we can work one-on-one together. I've got a group practice. You can find information on my website, narcovery.com, or message me on Facebook, because there is a screening process that you have to go through. And then I also have, self-directed courses that you can just kind of like, there's, I think, 100 videos and stuff that are all structured from beginning, middle to end, and it'll give you a pathway that you can do it, take in bite-sized pieces, do it at your own pace. And that you can find on narcovery.com/manipulation. And if you have any other questions, I'd be happy to answer them, And you're welcome, Renee. Grateful to have found you. Yeah, me too, Neil. I'm glad. It was great chatting with you. And hopefully we'll chat again. We'll chat again soon. And yeah, thanks so much for all the comments. I appreciate all the love and all the support. And we'll chat. And there's new posts coming up every day, so enjoy those. And I'll see everybody tonight or tomorrow, or whenever my next video gets posted. All right, bye.